corruption champion.
But transparency is very important, transparency and accountability. Maybe more details about the cases that he's investigating, especially those that have been sent to court. I think that would help to let us agree with him that he's not sleeping on the job.
We'll hear from the minority in parliament, which says Mr. Amidu has lost focus.
He's taken on board many things that ought not to agitate his mind. You can't fight corruption if you are not focused. He appears not to be focused on the job.
We have details here on Top Story, brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. Gassam cements the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. And Nationwide Medical Health Insurance, your healthcare family.
I'm well aware of the general sense of anxiety and the strong feeling that politicians tend to get away with corrupt practices. I do not expect that he will provide all the answers, will deal with the phenomenon of corruption by public officials. But I do believe that at the least, the office will remove the fear of partisan prosecution and begin to put the fear of God in all public officials who are intending to go down the path of corruption.
President Akufo-Addo there during the outdooring of Mr. Martin Amidu as special prosecutor. But almost 2 years down the line, there is no clear evidence of progress in the fight against corruption. In one of his epistles today, the special prosecutor is alleging that heads of state institutions are deliberately impeding his work. Ms. Amidu alleges that some heads of institutions refuse to comply with laws designed to ensure good governance and to protect the national purse. Ms. Amidu's appointment, of course, came with a lot of expectation, with hope his office will be the most efficient vehicle for fighting corruption in Ghana, but it's been criticized for not living up to expectations. Here are excerpts of his latest epistle.
What is worrying to this office is an anti-corruption investigation, and prosecutorial agency is a refusal of heads of institutions to take steps to enforce basic rules of discipline governing the institutions, even when they know their officers are under investigation, have been cautioned, bailed, and eventually even charged with corruption and corrupt-related offenses. The civil service, the local government service, the police service, and other public services have specific laws and regulations governing what happens to public officers who are under suspicion for disciplinary offenses, including crime, and prosecution for crime generally, which heads of institution ought to apply without prompting to fight corruption in their respective institutions. The Public Service Commission has also issued binding circulars and guidelines on ordering the interdiction and or indefinite leave of public officers suspected of serious misconduct and the commission of criminal offences. Public officers have been charged, arraigned before the High Court, and their pleas taken, only for them to return to their workplaces and work normally, as though they have never been suspected of committing any corruption offences. In the first place, an officer under investigation for misconduct or crime ought not to be in a position to interfere with the investigations. This explains the law and rules on interdictions even before a charge is actually preferred against a public officer. The Office of the Special Prosecutor invites public officers to assist investigations through their heads of institutions, and there can be no excuse after those officers have been publicly arraigned and their pleas publicly taken in a trial court for their heads of institutions to wait to be told what to do by way of disciplinary action pending the completion of the trial. The special prosecutor has been accused of sleeping on the job when he has only 3 seconded investigators from the Ghana Police Service, with no prosecutor employed directly by the office for obvious bureaucratic and technical reasons. The office has nonetheless managed to investigate and arraign a number of public officers before the High Court for prosecution. But their heads of institutions have failed or refused to apply the law on interdiction and or indefinite leave to deter others from following the same corruption path. What does the government and the public expect the Office of the Special Prosecutor to do when heads of institutions refuse or fail to support the fight against corruption and corrupt-related offences by not vigorously applying the regulations intended to aid the fight against corruption and other crimes? Corruption and corruption-related offences are offences committed primarily by public officers, and one does not ordinarily expect heads of public institutions to public officers suspected of committing those offences, even when they have been charged and put before the court. Those who know the history and the character of the special prosecutor know that he is ready, able and willing to go this route, should that be the only option left for the office to effectively execute the anti-corruption mandate entrusted to him by the people of Ghana, who supported his appointment. But let everyone remember, when that day arrives, there will be no bipartisan praise for the government. It will become a bipartisan political power play. Those who think this is talking too much or complaining too much should remember that a stitch in time saves 9. The Office of the Special Prosecutor cannot fight corruption unless the public and civil society give it their fullest support and put pressure on the political elite to obey the laws that enable the office to achieve its mandate. The President, the Minister of Finance, the Chief of Staff, the Auditor General, the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and the Financial Intelligence Center have been very supportive of the office thus far. But the response by other heads of institutions to the instructions from the executive branch appears to have been treated with impunity. As far as the records show, corruption cannot be fought on the so-called reputation of a few people. Every citizen needs to get involved now before the canker consumes the whole body politic.
So you have the excerpts of that epistle from the Special Prosecutor, Martin Amidu. I've been joined on the phone by the Minority Spokesperson on Constitutional and Legal Affairs, Yusuf Hussaini, and of course, Senanu, Edem Senanu is a leading member of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Thank you very much for your time here on Top Story, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before I come to you, though, let's hear from anti-corruption campaigner Vitus Azim, who says that Mr. Martin Amidu has to do more to prove to Ghanaians that he isn't sleeping on the job.
Legitimate concerns, but transparency is very important. Transparency and accountability. Maybe more details about the cases that he's investigating, especially those that have been sent to court. I think that would help. Let us agree with him that he's not sleeping on the job.
But then, for him to be lamenting at this point, is that what we are looking for, or we want him to just deliver?
Well, we want him to deliver within the resources that he has, within the powers and within whatever he has. And so lamenting, especially trying to exonerate the president and some of the people that matter. The president is the head of the executive in this country. Virtually all heads of institutions are appointed by the president. Virtually most of them can be removed by the president. He can sanction them. The Minister of Finance is the one that will release the resources to him. So if he's complaining about having only 3 investigators and saying that at the same time saying that the Minister of Finance is cooperating, I tend to differ a bit with those. There's no need to exonerate anybody because we know what they're supposed to do, and if they're not doing it, making it difficult for him to do his work, he shouldn't exonerate them from blame.
But this is the man, Martin Amidu, that most people described as the savior when it comes to corruption. And for him to be lamenting the way that he is, what does it mean to our fight against corruption?
Well, it's a sad development because the way this government has touted about setting up the Office of Special Prosecutor to fight corruption, both in and outside Ghana, we don't expect this. And these are the problems that he's encountering. And nobody is in a position to help him to overcome those concerns. It means that we are not succeeding in the fight against corruption.
And we stay on the phone lines. We'll start with you, Mr. Yunus Afuseni. You have already stated that Mr. Martin Namidu is losing focus. You've heard him in his epistle. He says those who know his history and character know that he is ready, willing, and able to do this. And I'm sure you are one of those who know the history and character of the special prosecutor. You don't think that he's well and able to do this? You're saying that he's losing focus.
Well, thank you so very much. Let me state clearly that I do know Mr. Martin Namidu. My association with Mr. Martin Namidu goes beyond myself to my father, when my father became the chief witness when he was a practicing lawyer in Tabale. And I've since known him when he was Deputy Secretary of the Upper West Region, Secretary of the Upper West Region, Deputy Attorney General in Accra here, under the Rollins administration, and all that up to now. So I know him.
And you know him well enough to...
I know Mr. Martin Namidu. That was why when His Excellency Nana Donka Akufo-Addo appointed him, I had tremendous confidence in him.
And has that confidence waned?
That confidence has seriously waned. It has been battered. It has been battered because the very thing that Martin Namidu is accusing others of doing, that is what he's constantly and persistently done. He is appointed pursuant to Article 195 of the Constitution. Like all other officers of state, they are appointed pursuant to those articles of the Constitution. Friar Zim has already said that executive authority of state is vested in the president under Article 58 of the Constitution. So all those complaints against those persons are complaints that should be lodged with the president. Martin Namidu cannot purport to be speaking to the president through the people of Ghana publicly. He has every access to the president. He said in his letter that he has support from the president. So if Mr. Martin Namidu feels that some civil servants or public servants are hampering or limiting or interfering or not cooperating with the performance of his functions as special prosecutor, the proper court to lodge a complaint is not through the public space.
But the last time that the president spoke about this issue, though, he mentioned that if we are not hearing these complaints from Mr. Namidu, it means that all the issues that he had raised in the past had been addressed. And that's just about 2 months or so ago. So I'm not sure that he has not lodged that formal complaint to the presidency.
I'm just saying that if Mr. Namidu has lodged that complaint with the presidency, then either Mr. Namidu is attempting to appoint himself as a commissioner general to direct all state agencies to do his bidding, or he's simply preparing the way for his exit. Because if there are determined clear channels for the lodging of grievances, Mr. Namidu should not choose other ways which are not known to the public service or to the civil service. And if you are accusing others of hampering your work, limiting your work, interfering with your work, and then you yourself adopt ways, corrupt ways that are not in sync with the ethos of the public service, then your method itself is unorthodox.
You say corrupt ways? What kind of corrupt ways is he adopting?
Unorthodox. If the way is unorthodox, it's not an orthodox way for a public officer to publicly complain against other public officers in the performance of his duties.
Well, Mr. Yunus Afuseni, let's bring in Edem Senanu. Like I said, he's a leading member of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. So he's an anti-corruption crusader. Mr. Edem Senanu, we are grateful for your time here on Top Story. So it's been one complaint after the other, from lack of resources, personnel, to frustrations from head of state institutions. From where you stand, though, is it coming from a good place? He has legitimate concerns?
Well, I must first of all say that I am absolutely aligned with Mr. Martin Ben-Alamisi Namidu and the points he's making. I have full confidence in the fact that, look, this gentleman, when push comes to shove, is going to take on the establishment. I think that he's giving us red flags. He's saying, you know, Mr. President, you have given me your support, you put me in this position. I'm willing to act, but you have some people around you and at different levels of government who are not acting robustly and swiftly to make sure that the policy statements and the mandate that you've given me is fulfilled. I think there's a nuance to what he's saying. I'm not quite sure about describing him as being corrupt, unorthodox perhaps, but I think that when I recall how President Atta Mills indicated that he had given instructions regarding various judgment debts, they should not be paid, and yet they were paid. And in those days, I used to wonder, how is this possible? Ever since then, I have found that, yes, we appoint people well-intentioned as presidents, but you need to understand that the people around them and at different levels of government can become hindrances and obstacles to the delivery of what the good people of this country expect. And I think it's about time we take a close look at our governance architecture and see whether it delivers on the promise that citizens want, because we are getting frustrated. I think that Mr. Amidu is pointing out that there's a problem, Mr. President. I don't have enough of the human logistics. I have 3 people seconded. That's not enough. In fact, these 3 alone could be working on just one case. With all the cases given to me, that's not enough. There's a logistical issue he's pointing out. He's also talking about the fact that if those people with me have been involved in corrupt acts, and yet their mother parent institutions will not call them to order, replace them, put them on interdiction or on leave, and they send them back to me, that creates a problem in terms of the workforce I have. And not just that. It's also pointed out the fact that, you know what, I'm going to have to take on your own ministers and other sector people. If they are not going to align and give me the information I need, it means I must take the Attorney General on. And that provides and poses a problem to you and your presidency. I think that Mr. Martin Amidu is trying to prepare the ground for further action.
But Mr. Sananu, though, 2 years or so down the line, is this the time for raising all these concerns? Should we not be working to see that the special prosecutor is actually delivering on the reasons why he was appointed?
That is where I absolutely agree with Honorable, that, you know, the president and the presidency has a key responsibility to facilitate whatever this office needs to deliver. So, yes, in one sense, when Martin says that, look, Mr. President has been giving me support and other, he needs to balance that kind of language very carefully, because ultimately the president is responsible. And my take on it is the presidency ought to have facilitated everything that the office needs to deliver. But we can see that there is a disconnect, and that is where Martin is highlighting these issues.
So, Mr. Inusaf Hussaini, the issues about the law also comes up, though. The law was very clear and very specific on how recruitment should be done. So 2 years down the line, if we are hearing that staff or core staff that he has are on secondment, what really is the problem then with the law?
Well, Martin Amidu must ask that question, because the last time he appeared before Parliament, his budget clearly indicated that he was going to embark on recruiting staff for the office. And he had told the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs that if he succeeded in recruiting the required personnel with integrity to his office, he believes that he would have done his bit in putting the Office of Special Prosecutor on a very sound pedestal. So the question should be directed at him. So we know whether or not the resources that he had asked for, that was approved by Parliament, has not been released to him, and so hampering or thwarting his efforts at recruiting people.
Now, staying a while longer on the special prosecutor's law, though, when we heard about moves to amend certain portions of that law, it was the hope that his concerns about not being clothed with enough powers to demand information and document would have been considered instead of the dual citizenship issue. Was it not that important, these concerns that he raised? Why was it not amended?
He has such powers. He has powers. He has powers to demand the transfer of documents to his office. We were careful to have put those powers in the law. In fact, we were so concerned with the fight against corruption and corruption-related offences that we said even where the Attorney General was prosecuting a case which involved corruption, and in the view of a special prosecutor, that a matter ought to be handled by his office. He could write to the Attorney General's office for the transfer of the docket to his office. So we are giving him those powers. Indeed, Mr. Hamidu has enormous powers under the Special Prosecutors Act. And I fail to see what is limiting him in the performance of his duties. And like I said, well, it could be one or two things. Either Matamidu wants the Ghanaian public to know that things are not well in his office, and so preparing his exit, or he simply is appointing himself as Commissioner General to superintend over all public offices in this country.
You seem not to believe that the man is faced with all sorts of impediments that are put in his way that will not make him focus on delivering on why he's there.
Well, to be honest with you, the last time Matahami appeared before us in Parliament, and especially the committee, I was given to understand that the previous year he had faced challenges. In fact, some of the challenges are appreciated to be in the classes of personalities between himself and the Attorney General. But subsequent to the passage of the budget and the approval of the vote, the money that he had requested for to him for the performance of his office, it is my belief that those obstacles or challenges that he faced prior to the release of the money would have been overcome by now. And so to continue to complain along the same tangent and lines that he complained before the approval of the 2019 budget and the power to set up his own office is to raise serious concerns about his ability to perform in that office.
Well, Mr. Senanu, though, since you seem to have aligned yourself with all the complaints or the issues that Mr. Amidu has raised, from where you stand, if you were in a position to speak to him, though, what are you expecting him to do in line with all that he's facing?
Well, I think that he should just proceed to take on every single sector, minister, entity that is refusing to provide the information he needs. Mind you, I think that we need to cross-check whether Mr. Amido is clothed with the power to recruit. Because my understanding is that even though he has a budget, for the public sector recruitment, the president has to do some kind of authorization before he can directly recruit. And so that's one of the issues as civil society we've been concerned about, whether the president is going to make sure that he's clothed with that authority or get somebody else to ensure that the recruitment done. So I don't think that on the surface of it, everything has been resolved as Honorable would like to put it. I think that there are still outstanding issues. But at this stage, I would say, Mr. Amidu, you've done your part. You have tried to alert everyone that, look, these are the issues. Now take the bull by its horn and get these people prosecuted. If you need to meet the court, just do that so that we know that, look, it is not about the fact that you are unable to move. It is just simply that you were given time to ensure that the right things are in place. So I think that he should proceed to go to court and take the actions that are required to safeguard his integrity and the integrity of the SPO.
We are grateful for your time, Mr. Edem Senanu. He's a leading member of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. But let's wrap up, though, with Mr. Inusuf Hussaini. So I would like to quote portions of what Mr. Amidu says in his epistle. He says, every citizen needs to get involved now before the canker consumes the whole body politics. Mr. Inusuf Hussaini, what would you say should be done to equip Mr. Amidu with everything he needs to be able to lead this fight against corruption?
You see, he has to keep it simple. Complicate matters for himself and focus. He should keep his work simple and focused. His mandate is clearly defined. He should go against corruption cases. If he thinks that some cases he will run into difficulties with other institutions of state and giving him documents, he should demonstrate his mettle and authority by going for cases or taking on first cases which will not involve other state institutions and demonstrate his commitment to fighting corruption along those lines.
But from where you stand, though, do you think that we should start managing our expectation of this special prosecutor? Are we expecting too much?
Exactly that's what Matramide is doing, is helping us manage our expectations.
I'm saying that, are we expecting too much from him?
He's helping us manage. He thinks that we are expecting too much for him. So in writing these letters, he's helping us manage our expectations.
You believe that even in the next 2 years we might not see anything?
I believe that, well, there are many, I share in the concerns of Matamido. I'm just saying that as a seasoned lawyer, as a seasoned politician, as an avowed citizen vigilante, if there are obstacles along the way, there are other cases in which there are no obstacles. Why don't you go against those cases?
Which cases are those? Which cases are those?
No, he knows. I mean, he also knows. I mean, he's in the office. All cases cannot be the same. All cases. So you should keep it simple for the beginning and then focus and deliver. And then he then has the legitimacy to say that, well, I couldn't do X, Y, Z because in those cases I had to collaborate with other state institutions, which institutions were not forthcoming. Then we understand.
That's exactly what he's saying, that he's put certain cases before court, certain individuals before court, and he needs additional information from the heads of institutions of these persons or cases that he's put before there. And that is not simply coming.
So we are back to the secular reasoning. So I'm saying that, so you mean that in all cases that Matmamidu is involved in, he will definitely need the support of other state institutions. Is that the conclusion that we are coming to? And if that is the conclusion, then Matmamidu has failed even before he has started.
But we saw when he put Mr. Mahamayarga before court, for instance, there was a huge uproar about it. Some raising concerns about how their family and all. We had Parliament raising concerns about putting an MP before court, amongst several others. The huge uproar that came up about one particular case that he even put before court.
But did he relent? Did he relent? Did he give way? That is what we expect of a special prosecutor. To remain focused and keep it simple.
We're grateful for your time, though. But as a Constitutional and Legal Affairs Commission, though, committee in Parliament, though, you should be concerned about these concerns that he's raising. Are you taking it up as a committee?
In fact, when Martin Amida appeared before the committee the first time, we were so alarmed by what had happened to him while in the office for a year that we expeditiously worked on his the budget that he had presented to Parliament and encourage him to continue to do his more. So for us, we're waiting for him to submit the quarterly report so that we'll see what he has done so far, because he is under obligation to provide Parliament a half-yearly report of how he has been able to discharge